welcome to a super fun episode of the Irresistible Marketing Pod, the business podcast that takes pride in being not safe for work on occasion, or actually more often than not. I'm your host, Isa Gauchi, your marketing confidence cheerleader and owner of this MESA Messaging digital marketing agency for small business baddies. If you've been watching my lives on Insta, you know I've been on a deep de-shaming kick, because there's a lot of it tangled up in my nervous system, and so much of that shame is not even mine. Most of it actually is from how much society has been shoulding all over me and all of us, trying to convince us we're supposed to be things we're not and want things we don't. As the marketing confidence cheerleader, I know a lot of my people struggle with similar shame burdens, and a lot of the deep work we do is to set that burden down. Because shame is just not very helpful. Often, it shuts us down. It holds us back from using our big voices and making our big art and changing the world the way we're meant to. Because we color outside the lines and white picket fences aren't our thing, and professionalism makes us feel like squirmy imposters, and we look around the other cubicles and no one else is even a little bit like us. Our dreams confuse people and our methods get confused for madness, and it's hard not to let other people's judgments knock us off our game. If that's you, have I got the most healing, most empowering person to introduce you to. My client and Shameless icon mentor and musical obsession, the one and only Star Matriarch. Sex work, autism, weaponizing how she was stereotyped for cash money, making a mistake in public and fully owning it. It's all part of Star Matriarch's story, and she shies away from none of it. She turned it into her damn brand. The multi-disciplinary artist's Red Ship record embraces every aspect of Star Matriarch's identity that she was once shamed for. And it was a journey to get there, she will tell you that. And the story is a wild ride, but you're gonna want to hop in. For anyone who has felt their creativity stunted by shame, come on, you gotta listen to this. We're ripping off our masks and setting them on fire as we get hyped for the Red Ship re-release. Red Ship is Star Matriarch's forthcoming record out of Exotic Fever Records. And for anyone who has ever had to charm the pants off the oppressor, you'll be rocking this record on repeat for the rest of your life. So stay tuned at the end of the episode. Star Matriarch has generously allowed me to include her single, You're Free With Me, in its entirety at the end, so make sure you stay listening. But real quick, just to be a responsible podcast hostess with the mostest, I got a few content warnings for you. So there is an explicit mention or two of sex work in this episode, and we swear a lot, like a lot. And I'm afraid I also spoil the movie A Star is Born. So enjoy, listen if you dare, have fun. Well, hello, Carol / Star Matriarch.
Hello, Lisa.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Would you
Thank you
mind?
for having me. I so appreciate this. I'm
I'm so
excited to
excited.
talk to you.
This episode is definitely going to be a treat for our listeners. It's really, I feel like we're right in the middle of A Star is Born, except for the bad relationship part, but like right on
I
the
never saw that movie. I never saw that movie because I love Lady Gaga's music, but I don't know, the whole like Lady Gaga and what's his face? Bradley Cooper. Bradley
Yeah.
Cooper. I don't know. Like it was just very like vanilla white. I don't know. Like it just didn't.
Yeah. I actually don't like, it's a remake. So they had like a Barbara Streisand version, and then I think it's like the fourth remake. It's been remade like for like every generation, it seems like. But it's
Yeah.
kind of a bummer because it's like the story follows this woman who starts out from humble beginnings. She's like a waitress, and then she becomes like a music icon.
Oh.
Like simultaneously she's like falls in love with this kind of male music star that's past his prime, and he gets really
Mhm.
threatened by her success and then becomes like awful, and we're
Ooh.
supposed to think it's like a great love story, and really I'm just like, dump him, Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Let's watch you
So
become an
does she?
icon.
Spoiler alert. Does she
Spoiler
know?
alert. I mean, while this story has been remade like 4 times and has been
Oh,
around,
okay.
we've all been
That's
alive.
why.
So spoiler
Maybe
alert.
that's
But no, she doesn't dump him. So ugh. So
okay. I'm bored.
yeah, so this is a better Star is Born because it's like a Star is Born without the bullshit. It's like this isn't a Star is Born, this is an icon is born. Like so, Carol, actually, you got a brand storytelling package, I think, right?
I
Like,
did.
yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Okay. So
I
I
think
remember,
I did that twice too. The very when you first started, and I
right.
was first,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I love this because so many people come in my door kind of feeling like a little insecure, waffly, like, is my stuff worth it? And we were kind of going through this part of the process for like dialing in the messaging so we can get the marketing really clear and have you really hyped up to show them your marketing, is we really get into like, so what is the brand? What's the vision? What are we
Hmm.
about? Like, what do you want to be? And like Carol has zero waffling. She's just like, I just want to be an icon. Or I think you're like, I just want to be a motherfucking icon, Issa. And I was just like, yes. Yes.
You know what, girl? Let me back. Yeah, I mean, people waffle and they're not sure for themselves, but it's like I felt like it comes from a place of emotional neglect, like a history of emotional neglect. You know, I I've always wanted to be special and wanted to be loved and admired by everybody, and not give anybody a chance to dislike me or not love me, you know, because of my upbringing, because my parents were too busy. Too busy being like, refugee immigrants, and trying to survive. But um but I always felt insecure about verbalizing that desire. You know, I was like doing everything to try to reach that, that I knew how to someday maybe reach that icon status. But there was still a lot of shame. I wasn't doing it without shame and without like feeling, self-conscious, and like, without the rejection sensitivity and all that. So I just want to like, I say all that to just kind of like hopefully validate others here who may feel like they have that desire or have that need, you know, but feel like they have to question it because of whatever messages they're getting.
Absolutely. And I think part of why your story is going to be so exciting and inspiring and empowering for my people is a lot of the process of your music and the birth of an icon, Star Matriarch, has been in unshaming and like literally weaponizing the ways other people have attempted and failed to shame you in so many different ways. But before I get too ahead of myself, let me just pause and allow you to introduce yourself and all your multidisciplinary awesomeness to my people, and then we'll get into it, your story.
Okay. Shit. Where do I start? I'm sorry. Is foul language okay? Like,
Absolutely. We love
okay.
swearing.
Okay. Well, I'm a singer-songwriter, and a multi-instrumentalist, I guess. Um, and yeah, I have a record that's coming out next year, and so I'm putting out some singles with the support of Exotic Fever Records, based out of Philly. Really awesome feminist punk label. Um, yeah, so that's I guess that's that. You're gonna edit this, right?
I'm not, because we're
Oh,
we unplugged sort of a
okay.
podcast.
I don't know why I'm stammering so much about this. I
Mhm.
don't know why I'm stammering so much about it, but yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a mom, a mother of two really beautiful kids. They're so wild, but they're the light of my life. I am also really, really into Egyptian style dance and music. And it shows up a lot in my songwriting too. Um, can you ask me specific questions, maybe specific prompts for me to answer as part of this
Yeah.
introduction? I should also mention I'm autistic and I have ADHD, and I feel like I'm constantly in a state of overwhelm. So sorry if my answers are not focused.
No, your answers are fantastic. So, a few other things I think are important to note about your identity up front is that you are Asian, daughter of immigrants.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, that stuff. Yes.
yeah. Um, You are also very upfront about your mental health journey.
Mhm.
You've got to follow her on social media. And of course, the links for all of that will be in the show notes, and she'll shout out all her handles at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
But if you want some neurodiversity solidarity, you got to follow her because she's so great. Especially I love the perspective you tie in with how it impacts you as an artist and like your creative cycle and also motherhood. Like the ways you're just really real about, and then I cried in my car and ate chicken nuggets or whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Overstimulation from the kids is yeah, it's real. It is so real. And it's mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for jogging my memory. My memory about my identity. I am Asian, cishet female. I'm a former sex worker, and I talk a lot about that in my music. And I feel like that's where I learned most of my people skills, so it does come up a lot in now that I'm not, that I've shed my shame around it for the most part, you know. And I do love to talk about my what my brain is going through just in all aspects of my life. Um, Mostly because I don't have other things to talk about. So I talk about myself a lot.
Well, also it's really generous because it's there are a lot of people that don't have the courage or feel willing to let the world or the internet in on aspects of their story or their journey that don't feel like Instagram filtery, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's I find it really refreshing and generous that you are so open and so sharing all these vulnerable aspects of your story and the progress you've made, but like minus the shame. It's so cool because I think for so many people what really holds them back in marketing in particular is they're like, what if someone sees something about me that they could judge me for or like criticize me for or like call me out on.
Oh
And
yeah.
you've lived through all of this in such an empowering, powerful way. And so I would love to get right into your story of your record, Red Ship.
Yeah.
Um, could we start with set the scene for uh was it 10 years ago? Version one. What was
Version
Red
one.
what was
When I
the first release of Red Ship?
first release of Red Ship, that I put it out 2011, but I actually began writing it 2, 3 years before that. So I work really slow. I remember, so my second album came out. It's called Everyone Wore White. That came out 2007, 2007, and I was just so tired and burnt out from the touring for that, from the promo. I had label support then. That record, I wrote a lot about the Asian American experience, and but I didn't have like full consciousness of everything yet. you know I wasn't we didn't have like Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. I mean, we had Twitter, but it wasn't very it wasn't very big then. And so discussions surrounding identities and surrounding like these experiences as marginalized people, um weren't really there, weren't really accessible to me, anyway. And so I was just really burnt out from this very white bread scene that I was trying to navigate, and it's weird, like, the thing about having like internalized misogyny too, which is what, I finally learned, what was just really driving a lot of my actions, as a singer-songwriter trying to become an icon, whatever. I was always vying for the attention of these white dudes, you know, um, without really good like rhyme or reason thinking about it, and it's frustrating. But anyway, let me before I get too distracted by that, I was tired of it all, and I started exploring other music. I stopped, listening, so I stopped listening to bands that I toured with, like mostly men, and all these like indie rock bands that I used to just like adore. I looking back, I do still adore them. But let me get back to it. I started listening to some like different genres from across the world, and I came across I forgot how I came across Natasha Atlas. Do you know who Natasha Atlas is? She's a wonderful like Arab fusion singer songwriter who's been active for a long time. I want to say she started being active like late 90s. She's this beautiful singer. I think she's her father's Egyptian and her mother is British. I can't remember. But anyway, I came across her music, and it's this beautiful fusion of like some, very European like dance stuff, but also, Arab rhythms, and she sang in Arabic. She sings in Arabic, and she's also covering like, some classic Arabic singers and songs, and I was just mesmerized by her stuff. And I think and she also did rock sharky in her live shows, and I was just mesmerized by her and her music. And then I went down this whole like rabbit hole of like looking up her influences, and I started learning belly dance. I started taking classes locally, or rock sharky, and was just so like mesmerized by it all. It's like the rhythms are different, the melodies are different, but the emotional intensity was always there. And I think that's what really captured me about Arabic music, just from the start, like all across the board, no matter what, subgenre. um and I also was really burnt out from my job my day job at the time. I was a software engineer, and I felt like I had been there maybe at that point 4 years at the small software company. And every day, showing up to work, I'd spent, I would get distracted and spent most of the day listening to music while pretending to type and code, and like doing touring stuff like MySpace shit, and doing music stuff to further my career. And I'm just like, my brain is just not thriving here. This is not working. I need a way to sustain myself, to pay for my music career in as little time possible. And I'm not sure how that took me to sex work, but it did. I think I started with like looking on Craigslist and all that, um and like finding weird ads and saying, oh well, maybe I could do that too, you know but anyway, let me make sure I don't like drag on. Feel free to like, you know steer me to the point if I'm just like rambling on too much or giving too much detail that's really not necessary. Anyway, I got into sex work, um and became an escort. And I was like, "Ah, man, this is a whole world, and I wanted to write music about it, about the experience. And I felt so inspired by, all this Arabic music that I was being exposed to, that I started listening to, and this the the various rhythms. Everything's just so different. Like coming from the indie rock world, where like unless you're screaming about, against corporations and like corrupt governments, I never felt like it was okay to really spill your heart out, you know? Um, Even I just remember we're doing a music video for one of the songs off of Everyone Wore White. The guy who did my music video was like, when I was trying to figure out how I wanted to lip sync, he was like, I prefer when artists are not so affected. They don't show so much affectation or like keep it pretty like emotionless, I guess. And I really took that to heart, and I always felt really stifled by that. Um, and it was, noted in a Pitchfork review of that record that, Carol sings like this person with her perfect posture, only because she could just let go. And I felt like, absorbing um, Arabic music, non-Western music, non-white music, really gave me permission for that, you know? So anyway, and then let's see. So
Curious
I wrote
also-
"You're
Sorry.
Free with Me" for. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious also, like, through both belly dance and as an escort, were you kind of getting to explore this alter ego or two different alter egos that you almost hadn't had permission to in like regular life
Oh,
beforehand?
absolutely. Absolutely. So I struggled, everybody like everybody talked about how hot I was, being in a very male dominated industry, but I was awful at social interactions, at like dating and hooking up. I like didn't have sex for I think 5 years after I broke up with my first boyfriend. Um, because I miss social cues all the fucking time, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. I mean, like, but like, I just didn't have like a good social script. But when I entered the world of sex work, everything was just clearer because, you want to have like really clear expectations laid out. You need to have clear communication. I mean, there was some code language too because you didn't want to be too explicit or you could get arrested if it was a cop or something, but which I think is kind of silly. But other than that, yeah, no, it allowed me to just be free, honestly. I guess it wasn't so much an alter ego, but like the ego that had been there that had to mask for so long, honestly.
Yeah, and at the time, you were saying like the reviews at the time were like, okay, so clearly it's referencing sex work, but it's just a fantasy. And
I told I told people because I didn't feel safe when I
yeah,
put out that record. I didn't feel safe enough to say these songs are about my experiences. So I remember telling an interviewer that this is fantasy. I started exploring because, it's like, this is really interesting. I was watching Secret Diary of a Call Girl, and, which is true. And I was really curious about this work, which is true. I just didn't admit that I actually dove into the work and did a lot of field study, field research myself. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
It's really interesting though, because I was thinking about the album again, and a lot of the songs are about like sex work, but not necessarily about themselves. Like
Oh, yeah.
which is really some of the messaging that stood out most to me was kind of the like sex workers as de facto mental health workers. And
Oh, yeah.
we've had conversations where you're like, it's actually ableist to shame people for going to
Absolutely.
workers. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Um,
yeah, go ahead, come on.
I mean, it's multi-layered. Yeah, absolutely. I saw some, I mean, I saw a few disabled folks. I mean, that wasn't my main clientele, but I did, and like I had one really big man, for example, who, we had to figure out a way for him to get off, you know, um, that was ergonomic. And I used my leg to rub against him. I'm getting really explicit. Is that okay?
I
But
don't mind. I'll put a content warning on it.
yeah, yeah. So that's one example. And like I mean, yeah, it's absolutely ableist to shame people for trying to meet their needs, in whatever way they can. And for a lot of people, more than what we think, it's paying a professional who will not judge you, who has experience, and has the empathy, to meet you where you're at, you know. Um, and but yeah, so I strongly feel that. I mean, on the other hand, there's also, my clientele, a lot of it was all cis men. And if you can also imagine, there's a lot of like, toxicity too. So I'm not gonna gloss over that. I'm not, and actually one of my songs, geisha means open-minded. I'm kind of, well, I mean, I guess in a lot of my songs, I'm kind of mocking the hobbyist too, even if I'm saying you're free with me, which is true, but I'm, you know, like like for example in geisha, I directly took, it's like a composite of reviews that clients would write and share, or did write and share, on these like internet forums. And it's really funny if you ever get a chance to read them. I don't know if they're still up now. It's been so long, but um, they use code, and you can tell sometimes they're trying to show off their writing skills or their imagination, or they're trying to one up each other in describing these sessions with these providers, you know um yeah, it's really funny, and so I poke fun at them a little bit too, you know um
I also like the theme of kind of like taking, yes, like it's very, you have this like really amazing mixture of empathy and compassion and understanding like all of the emotional benefits that are coming from this transaction.
mhm,
And then also all of the how this is steeped in the culture we're in. So like all of the misogyny, all of the racism
yeah.
and stereotypes you're having to face. And then I think particularly with geisha is means open-minded, you were like, this song is about taking all of the stereotypes that are leveled at me and like exploiting them to make bank.
Yeah, I'm the perfect girlfriend experience because I'm Asian and sweet and just doting, and yeah, and
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna take your fucking money.
I don't think I've asked you this yet, but like, what was, since you were in such, and all your most of your music contacts at the time were like male indie rock scene, what was their reaction? Were they terrified or did it go over their heads?
I don't know. I didn't get a whole lot of, I got more attention on my previous record and on that record for sure. Even though I thought that this record would have done better commercially, or like, because I felt like it was more pop centric, even though it's not like necessarily all pop. Excuse me. But the song structures were more simple and the melodies were more immediate in my experience, in my opinion. And I thought that the subject matter would be provocative, but I think I don't know, I don't feel like I really got um a whole lot of attention as I expected. And it's hard to say if a lot of the guys were terrified or not. um like, I got some good reviews, some good, really good press. I don't think I got any negative press that I saw. um but they were they're very focused on like the superficial, they none of, I feel like it's not terribly like buried that I talked about the emotional labor about, in sex work. I think it's kind of clear, in my lyrics. But that wasn't really mentioned, you know um so yeah, I don't I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I was just curious. Anyway, okay, so we could fill like 12 podcasts just talking about the music, but I want to respect your time. So I'll
I will say though that the focus, I feel like they, yeah, a lot of the reviews, the feedback, or the press that was on that for that record was focused on like the percussion aspect and focused on like, oh well, Carol started belly dancing and Carol started playing drum. Oh yeah, and I picked up drums to write that record. Um, I that's when I started playing drums, and so that record, a lot of the songs started off with a drum beat. Um, but so I feel like, music dudes were able to just like geek out on that part and just ignore the rest. And they did kind of a similar thing with my previous record too. Ignored the racial stuff, ignored the internal stuff that I was processing, just talked about the music.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a way because they're scared. Maybe they are scared. Maybe they were scared.
Interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to keep talking with you about that, but I want to get back to the marketing and branding just for the
Yes.
purpose of this conversation.
Yes.
Okay, so it's been 12 years since the first release of Redship. We are now re-releasing it. Your single Free With Me is out now on streaming platforms. It's fantastic. Everybody should check it out.
It's
But
also on Bandcamp. You can download it off of Bandcamp. I get more money from there.
okay, never mind. Spotify, download it off Bandcamp.
Mhm.
Okay, so I just wanted to give listeners a sense of some of the things that have changed in your personal journey since the first release, which is you are no longer a sex worker. Your relationship with belly dance has evolved significantly to uh, be more respectful of where your influences are coming from and how to pay homage to the cultures they're coming from, which we'll talk more about in a minute. You are now a mother. You've learned more about your own mental health, and I think autism has been like a last few years learning. Is that correct?
More like the last past year, yeah.
Last year? Okay. And so with these oh, and you moved across the country too, right? Okay. So, and you got married, and so your life has changed significantly in these last 12 years. How has your art grown and evolved with you, and why was now the time to re-release this album?
So, I did start writing again when the pandemic hit because I had more time and more space to think about music again. Um, and I feel like I've grown in that like I've let go a lot of the hangups that I had. I had these stupid rules for myself. Like one, don't express too much emotion. Even with Red Ship, it wasn't so much about my emotional, like any internal processing really. It's, just about the sex work and about other people maybe, and maybe there's one love song in there. Um, but like as far as pouring my heart out, I there's songs that weren't released with the original Red Ship that will be on this new Red Ship. Um, and I feel like I have a much more nuanced understanding of the world. And that also allows me to like dissect why I had these stupid rules or hangups in the first place. And so I feel a lot more free in how I write now. Um, and so yeah, musically, and I like I literally also have better like technique because I had surgery. Carpal tunnel surgery on both hands, both wrists, um, and cubital on this one, plus trigger finger here, 4 surgeries. And I also feel like I just have more stamina. I sing. I feel like I have more control over my voice. Just being in better shape, really working on my health and my mental health, physical health over the past few years. It's just like I feel almost superhuman now. I don't know how to explain. I mean, technically I'm really not that great a guitar player. I'm really not. I actually kind of suck. But but I mean like in compared to where I was before and the freedom that I feel now to express myself, you know.
Is
Um,
part of the freedom like you you mentioned before it wasn't so much an alter ego as like you get to set the mask down that you
Yep.
had to wear for a while, and it seems like in these 12 years you're just like set the mask on fire, I'm never wearing the mask
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So part
It's
of
so
it was,
taxing.
yeah, so part of it was like this personal unshaming journey. And
Yeah.
so now when you're remarketing Redship, you're like, no, I was literally a sex worker. This is
Yeah.
about actual sex work.
Yeah.
Um, which is huge. That's a huge like leap, which is, does that feel freeing to be able to be so like open about it this time?
It does feel so freeing. I mean, times have changed, not just me, right? Like I feel like the social landscape has changed, and I feel like the younger generations are so great at like, this whole just like educating everybody on their experiences and like really calling out the injustices and like okay, so and really learning to, showing us teaching us how to really to question everything, right? Like you know, for a long time we always felt like yeah, sex work is something to shame, prostitutes are people to look down on, but like I love that the younger generations, I'm like elder millennial Gen X cusp. um I feel like with social media and with these younger generations like actively advocating and really lifting the veil and really focusing on like history and education and just real life lived experiences too, like why, so this, and so I feel like that's made me feel safer, you know and it also helps that I'm not a sex worker anymore. It's been like years, but you know yeah, no, I think a lot of it is just the social landscape, so
Awesome. And then I'd love to briefly touch on, this is another one we could do like 12 podcast episodes on, but um one thing I know a lot of people I work with for marketing have a huge fear of is like, what if I say the wrong thing and people see it? Like, what if I do the wrong thing in public? What if I make a mistake in public and get called out on it? Like, do I just have to throw the whole business away? Do I have to go like set everything on fire, like what, like, like this is like people, I got a lot of anxious creatives in my circle.
yeah.
um
No, I understand. I get that, especially, you people are worried about quote unquote cancel culture or call
yeah,
out culture. Well, here's the thing, like, uh, I think I'm learning that this a lot of this might be my autism too, but like, autistic people, when we have values, where we stick by them really strongly, you know, and so and if we feel free enough to express these values, and die on these hills like publicly, you know, well, for me anyway, I can't speak for all autistic people. For me anyway, I feel like then I carry through. I follow through with those values. But really identifying those values deep as opposed to like surface level. Like for example, I one basic tenet could be, well, I believe in fairness and justice and equity. I feel like, if if people are marginalized, there should be justice and we should help to prop them up, so on, right? And if we make mistakes, then we correct ourselves to prevent harm and move on, and I'm trying to operate by that in my private life constantly, and I feel like publicly, if I make a mistake, okay, well, correct it. That's what I would do in my private life. Okay, look, correct it, learn from it, prevent harm, you know and move on. And it comes also from the very clear understanding that everybody fucks up too, everybody else fucks up too, you know and so how do we mitigate that harm? How do we prevent that harm from happening again, and how do we keep doing better? you know um
I think
like
like a really great living example of this is part of the motivation, I think, for re-recording Red Ship was
Yeah.
taking out some of the previous belly dance influences. So I know there was
Yeah.
like a Habibi
Yep.
line in chorus that is not present in the next in the new version. Um,
Yeah.
so just for a little listener background, Carol, you still dance? I used to be part of the belly dance world, but in recent years, we've been kind of collectively re-examining and been like, a lot of a lot of
Yeah.
what was just accepted as cute moves and performance norms is actually really appropriative and disrespectful to the cultures this is borrowing from. Maybe
Right.
we should re-examine this. So, Carol, to have made some really art that meant so much to you, that came from your heart, that you still loved, and to be like, there are some references in here that I don't feel great about now. What was it
Hmm.
like for you to decide, I'm not throwing the whole album out, but here's how I'm going to change it so I feel better about it?
Yeah. So I was really proud of the actual songs. I was proud of my stories and I wanted to share them honestly this time around. And part of that too is also being honest with myself about, what was going on in my head when I was producing that record and writing that record and all that. And a lot of my thought processes were harmful and came from like flat out like orientalist fantasy, quite honestly. The whole, it's so easy to be seduced by like the exoticism of belly dance and like sexy hip moves and exotic rhythms. um and then wanting to channel that and profit off of it. I mean, we're just kind of trained by capitalism, white patriarchal capitalism, to steal and try to benefit ourselves. Um and so yeah, like for You're Free with Me, that I actually said Habibi in there. And I remember, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I thought it sounded sexy. And I thought white dudes would totally eat it up, you know and I was trying to craft this like seductive but dangerous, like yeah, I'll fuck you, but then like I'll chew your insides out. But that part, seduction part, I was very much like utilizing orientalist fantasy, you know without having a real understanding of how harmful that is, you know and so I in remixing this record and redoing vocals, redoing guitar, I wanted to go for, really focus on like the rock and the catharsis and the stories, and Habibi really was not necessary to the story at all. It was not relevant, you know, so took it out. And I'm not shy about admitting this because I know a lot of other fucking people do the same thing and getting away with it, and I also don't like to operate under a lie, and realizing how I've operated under a lie, this lie of like, racial misogyny, um that pisses me off, and so I don't want to feed that anymore, so yeah. And I also don't feel like, I should throw away my hard work either, so make it, reduce the harm and put it out more authentically.
Yeah, I think that a few things are like really interesting to point out for my audience, because so like using the word Habibi to kind of like trigger into other people's orientalist fantasies and association weird stereotypes of dangerous sexiness,
Yeah.
um, that went bye-bye, but like the Arabic rhythms survived, right?
Oh yeah.
The Arabic rhythms are still in there, the influence is still in there. um like you took what you love about Arabic music, um and how much you've studied it and how much you've danced to it. And that's still in the album, but just the like the stuff that's gonna just tap into those weird cultural stereotype
Right.
images we have, that went away. Um, and like I think this is such a gift for people to hear because like yeah, like I think anybody who was dancing in the mid aughts to belly
Mhm.
dance probably has some like cringe moments where like, oh, did I really
Oh,
perform
we
like
all did, yeah.
that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But like I think this is just such a beautiful example of like taking the part that was good and meaningful and also acknowledging the harm caused and like releasing that, you know,
Yeah.
but
I
also
feel
admitting it.
Yeah, I feel like, for your audience who feel like this discomfort in like and in being vulnerable, and it really does like help to understand that this is a systemic thing, a structural thing, you know. You're not the only one fucking up. Everybody's fucking up. Everybody's fucking up, and everybody, a lot of people fuck up publicly. But, it's so, I feel like it's so helpful to really to just like acknowledge that and forgive yourself for it. Not look at yourself as, I'm a bad person for this because I did this. Because then you miss the point. You miss the point that this is a structural problem, that there's outside forces that are, influencing you. Um, and so that you have the power to change that and correct this, bad thing you did. Um, and yeah, and then, grow more powerful from that, from the learning and from, the growth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it also strikes me that like you actually had to think about like what was Habibi serving for me and you're like, "Oh, I want to be sexy and dangerous."
Yeah.
Which then is like, "Well, how do I be sexy and dangerous?" Which makes it even more authentic to you, you know? Which is really I have a feeling it's part of it's like not just, like, related to your unmasking process, it's like, no, this is the unmasking process, like because we don't have to, like, rely on these references that are external to us to say what we wanna say, we can just say what we wanna say when we face our own shame.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm sick of going by what, like, stupid white men think are sexy, what I think stupid white men think are sexy. I'm tired of, you know, trying to accommodate that, you know.
Yeah, obligatory, not all, but eh.
Right. Obligatory, not all. Just to, like, shut the the overstimulation of like, yeah, 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 but not all. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Alright, well, I know are you able to go over, like, 5 minutes? Okay,
yeah.
awesome. Well, so that leads me right into when you showed up on my Zoom doorstep and we started working on your brand, which is the iconic Star Matriarch, the multidisciplinary artist that you are, who just talks about whatever is part of your current unmasking process and de-shaming process, whether it be about motherhood or mental health or um, the your particular Asian experience. Sorry, side note. It's funny when people are like the Latinx experience. I'm like, there's a lot of us. It's really
Yeah.
hard to say that as if it's like just one. But
Right.
I'm like, I can tell you about my Latinx experience, but
Mhm.
okay, but anyway, yes, Star Matriarch. What role has something like me, your personal marketing confidence cheerleader, and other support that you've invested in played in you being able to have the courage and feel brave enough to make these bold moves with your art and to be so visible with your journey?
I appreciate you so much, Issa. Um, but like, I think what has helped me the most that you've done, out of all the wonderful things you've done with your copy editing and like everything, and just your genius. But like the cheerleading especially has been so helpful. I mean, like, wanting to be like explicitly saying that I want to be an icon opens me up to a lot of possible, just makes me really vulnerable. But you've helped me just really own it. You've helped me, I mean, I've cried to you, you've helped me like own my brain, and really feel I don't feel like I would have been fearless, or I would be as fearless, without you giving me all the support. And I feel like, for an icon, you kind of have to be fearless. And I think without your help, I don't think my confidence would not be here. I mean, and I feel like, and I always had this like a different idea of what confidence really looked like, and I never fully understood it to be like a full confidence in how you are, and that you are valued exactly the way you are, and I got that feeling from you. And I so appreciate, that's so invaluable, so thank you.
Oh my gosh, I feel
Yeah.
like I'm gonna rewind that and play that to myself every night before I go to bed. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for saying
it's
that.
yeah, and I feel like that same feeling of like, it's very freeing, right? When you feel secure in, well, you know what, I'm gonna say what I need to say, do what I need to do, serve myself, um like that. I feel like everybody who has had to, um who's had to shut themselves up for other people, I feel like everybody deserves to have that same feeling of like, now I can be authentic, show up authentically to my, for my business, for my clients, my customers, just to the world, be who I am, and understand that, I'm enough. I'm enough. I don't have to, like, I follow your Instagram. I don't have to be coercive. I don't have to like manipulate people into, appreciating me or appreciating my work. I know my value. I'm not afraid to know, yeah, appreciate myself publicly, because I deserve it. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
thank you so much for being vulnerable and willing to share that, because I think a lot of people, it's so vulnerable to put your art or your business out there for the world, um, and like open yourself up to other people's eyes and thoughts and opinions about you, especially if you're selling it or, you know, putting your stuff out there and checking things like downloads and metrics. It can feel really vulnerable. And for a lot of people, they really want to convince themselves, like, I'm strong enough for this. And so they think if they're like, if I'm strong enough for this, I shouldn't be needing emotional support, or I shouldn't be admitting that, and it's so backwards. It's like, no, strong people are like, to be strong, to be confident, to be an icon, I need to understand that I deserve to have my cup poured into. Like, I deserve someone to nurture me and hold my hand. I deserve like skilled, consenting, compassionate, emotional support when I'm doing
Yes,
something so brave and vulnerable, for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%. Well, Carol, thank you so very much for sharing your incredible story with folks. We are going to definitely include all of your links. And I know you have a few shows coming up, so we will have those prepared in the show notes for people listening to this episode so they can go click on those. But will you give it a shout out? Where can people follow you and keep up with you and listen to your fabulous music?
Yeah, so I'm on Spotify. You can just search Star Matriarch. You can also find my old stuff under just Carol Bowie. Um, really different. And I'm also on Bandcamp. It's just starmatriarch.bandcamp.com. As I said, you can download there, and I get more of the cut. Spotify pays like 0.003 cents per stream or something ridiculous like that. I don't know. And then I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube as also just Star Matriarch, at Star Matriarch. And I guess lastly, there's my website, which has all this information too. It's just starmatriarchmusic.com.
If you are ready to de-shame your business, your marketing, and your creativity, you're going to want me as your marketing confidence cheerleader. And you're in luck because Season of Support, my signature 12-week one-on-one coaching program, is on sale right now for 25% off. In Season of Support, we vanquish whatever, and I mean whatever, is standing in the way of your most dazzling, most empowering, most lucrative marketing. You can expect to get things done fast, especially those things you've been avoiding because they seem too big and scary. Oh, we're going to conquer those. And don't be surprised if, as a consequence, your business up levels real fast. And it's, again, 25% off through Tuesday, October 3rd, which is actually hundreds of dollars off the price. And I'm also offering interest-free payment plans for up to 6 months to make this even more accessible. You can find out how to grab your spot before they're gone at the link I've included in the show notes for this episode. And if you loved this episode and want to keep up with Star Matriarch and add all of her songs to your playlists, check out the show notes for how to follow her as well. And if you did enjoy this episode, as I'm sure you did, and you'd like to keep more like this coming your way, show me some love by subscribing and dropping me some stars and a glowing review. That goes such a long way to help others find this rad-free resource. And it makes me feel real good to know that y'all get a kick out of this content. All right, love you, bye.